The massive Cytherian warship Eternal Dawn hung in the darkness of space, its crystalline hull refracting starlight into countless prismatic patterns. On the command deck, Supreme Commander Varric stood motionless, all four of his arms clasped behind his back as he studied the holographic projection of Earth floating before him. Such a peculiar world, he mused, his violet eyes narrowing as data streams scrolled across the projection. Primitive weaponry, fractured governments, and they haven't even established a permanent presence beyond their atmosphere. This will be the easiest conquest since the Proxima campaign. Behind him, senior xenoanthropologist Lyra Kaveri shifted uncomfortably. Her scaled skin rippled with concern as she reviewed her own findings. After 20 cycles studying primitive species for the Empire, something about this situation felt wrong. Supreme Commander, with respect, I must voice my concerns, she said, her tail twitching nervously. The humans, they're different from our previous conquests. Varric turned one eye stalk toward her, maintaining his view of Earth with the other. Different how? Their technology is centuries behind ours. Their weapons can barely reach their own orbital space. It's not their technology that concerns me. Lyra brought up a new hologram, displaying various human cultural artifacts. It's their mindset. In all my years studying developing civilizations, I've never seen a species so obsessed with the concept of extraterrestrial conflict. The hologram cycled through thousands of human entertainment media, movies about alien invasions, books about interstellar wars, games depicting space combat. They've been preparing for this moment for centuries, not through technology, but through imagination and scenario planning. Varric waved a dismissive hand. Entertainment media. You're basing military concerns on their fictional stories. Supreme Commander, these aren't just stories. Lyra insisted, pulling up more data. Look at their military development pattern. Every major technological leap they've made has been driven by conflict. Their first computers, built to break enemy codes. Their space program, born from missile development. Even their civilian technologies are repeatedly adapted for military use. A junior tactical officer interrupted, his crystalline uniform glinting as he approached. Supreme Commander, we've detected unusual activity in Earth's polar regions. Several facilities previously marked as research stations are showing unexpected energy signatures. Lyra's scales paled. They've spotted us. Despite our cloaking technology, they've spotted us. Impossible, Varric scoffed. Our stealth systems are beyond their detection capabilities. Are they? Lyra challenged, bringing up yet another display. Humans have been searching for signs of extraterrestrial life for centuries. Every radio telescope, every space probe, every satellite launch. They've been building a detection network piece by piece, hiding it in plain sight. The tactical officer's console suddenly erupted with alerts. Sir, we're detecting massive energy spikes across the planet's surface. Hidden facilities are becoming active. Their orbital satellites are transforming. Lyra's voice took on an urgent tone. Supreme Commander, please. In all their fiction, in all their planning, humans have consistently portrayed one key theme: the underestimated species that defeats a technologically superior force. They've been rehearsing this moment in their minds for generations. Varric finally turned to face her fully, his expression hardening. You suggest we should fear a species that can barely reach their own moon, because of their imagination? No, Lyra replied quietly. I suggest we should fear a species that has spent its entire history fighting itself, innovating through conflict, and dreaming of this exact moment. They're not primitive, Supreme Commander. They're practice-hardened. The tactical console blazed with new warnings. Across Earth's surface, hidden bunkers were opening. Orbital platforms were revealing weapon systems. Submarines were surfacing with previously undetected launch capabilities. Supreme Commander, the tactical officer called out, his voice shaking. They're broadcasting a message, in perfect Cytherian. The message played through the command deck's speakers. To the alien vessel observing Earth. We've been expecting you. You have one planetary rotation to leave our solar system. This is your only warning." Varric stared at the hologram of Earth, watching as thousands of previously hidden military installations revealed themselves. For the first time in his long military career, he felt a chill of uncertainty. "They've been preparing for war while making us think they were preparing for peace," Lyra whispered. "And now we've given them exactly what they've been waiting for, a common enemy to unite against." The tactical officer's console erupted with new alerts as Earth's first response began. They were about to learn why humanity's favorite stories were always about beating impossible odds. General Sarah Chen stood in Earth's Combined Defense Command, her eyes fixed on the massive holographic display showing the Catharian vessel. Around her, military officers from every nation worked with practiced precision, as if they'd rehearsed this moment their entire lives. In many ways, they had. "Status of Operation Thunderbolt?" she asked, her voice steady despite the weight of humanity's first interstellar conflict resting on her shoulders. Colonel Patel looked up from his station. "All subsurface platforms are in position. The Himalayan, Andes, and Antarctic defense grids are fully operational. All orbital assets have completed their transformation sequences. And Project Lighthouse, active and collecting data, General. The alien vessel's crystalline structure is interesting. Our quantum sensors are detecting unusual energy patterns within their hull matrix." Sarah allowed herself a small smile. The Catharians had no idea that every failed quantum physics experiment over the last 50 years had been building toward this technology. Humanity hadn't just been preparing for alien contact, they'd been preparing to win. "Their response to our warning?" "None yet, General. But they're moving additional ships into the system. We're detecting at least 30 vessels emerging from some form of faster-than-light travel." Sarah nodded, just as the simulations predicted. "They always send overwhelming force." She pressed a button on her command console. "This is General Chen to all Earth Defense Forces. Initialize Protocol Omega. Authorization code. Humanity stands. Across the planet, hidden facilities hum to life. In the depths of the oceans, massive generators began spinning up. In underground bunkers, quantum computers started processing combat solutions that had been refined through decades of war games. The Catharian fleet assembled in a perfect attack formation, their crystalline ships creating a beautiful but deadly constellation against the backdrop of space. Supreme Commander Varric's voice boomed across all frequencies. "Humans, your defiance is noted but futile. Surrender now, and we will be merciful. Send our response." Sarah commanded. In orbit, thousands of seemingly innocent satellites suddenly transformed. What had appeared to be solar panels reconfigured into weapon arrays. Communication dishes revealed themselves as focusing lenses for energy weapons. Even space debris shifted, showing itself to be carefully positioned defensive platforms. On the eternal dawn, Lyra watched in fascination as her worst fears materialized. "Supreme Commander, their orbital defense network, it's unlike anything we've encountered. The design principles, the positioning, they're using our own tactical doctrines against us." "Impossible," Varric snapped. "They couldn't possibly know our—" The space around Earth erupted in coordinated chaos. The transformed satellites fired in perfect sequence, their attacks synchronized in ways that suggested decades of preparation. Each shot targeted a specific weakness in Catharian shield geometry, weaknesses that should have been unknown to such a primitive species. "How are they predicting our shield harmonics?" a tactical officer cried out as the first Catharian ship exploded in a crystalline shower. Lyra's eyes widened in realization. The quantum sensors we detected, they weren't just scanning us. They were reading our entire technological base. Everything we brought into their system has been teaching them about us. On Earth, Sarah watched as humanity's first space battle unfolded. The Catharian ships were more advanced, more powerful, and more numerous. But humanity had spent centuries preparing for exactly this scenario, and they had one advantage the Catharians couldn't match. They were fighting for their home. "Launch the swarm," she ordered. From hidden silos across the planet, thousands of small craft took to the skies. They weren't the sleek, advanced ships the Catharians had expected. Instead, they were deliberately simple, designed to be easily manufactured and replaced. But they carry humanity's greatest weapons: adaptability and determination. The swarm moved in patterns that seemed chaotic to the Catharians, but were actually based on decades of algorithmic warfare development. Each ship's movement was coordinated with thousands of others, creating a constantly shifting battle geometry that the Catharian tactical computers couldn't predict. Their attack patterns, Lyra gasped, watching the display. They're evolving in real time. Every time we adapt our defenses, they learn and change their approach. The Catharian fleet's perfect formation began to break apart as the human forces exploited weaknesses faster than they could be protected. Ships that had conquered countless worlds found themselves trapped in a web of synchronized attacks from enemies they had dismissed as primitive. "Signal the second wave," Varix commanded, his voice tight with growing concern. "Sir," his tactical officer responded, "we're detecting massive energy buildups on the planet's surface. They're powering up something big." In her command center, Sarah Chen gave the order they had waited generations to deliver: initiate solar lance. Hidden facilities around Earth's equator revealed themselves, each housing a massive energy collection array. As they activated, they began drawing power not just from the planet's power grid, but from the very solar radiation that bathed the Earth. "A primitive species," Sarah murmured, watching the Catharian fleet's formation crumble. "Perhaps, but we've had a long time to think about this day. And humanity's greatest strength has always been its ability to turn imagination into reality." The solar lance fired, its combined beams converging into a single point of devastating energy. The Catharian fleet was about to learn that humanity's primitive technology had been purposely understated, a lesson that would reshape the galaxy's understanding of this supposedly backward species. Dr. Maya Patel stood in the midst of organized chaos within Earth's Advanced Warfare Research Division. Holographic displays filled the massive underground facility, showing real-time analysis of Catharian technology. Around her, the brightest minds from every nation worked tirelessly, turning alien wreckage into humanity's newest weapons. "Show me the crystal matrix analysis," she commanded, and a new hologram sprang to life. The crystalline structure of Catharian technology rotated before her, its secrets slowly unraveling under humanity's relentless scrutiny. "Dr. Patel," her assistant called out, "the quantum resonance team has made a breakthrough. The Catharian crystals, they're not just their technology, they're their computer systems." Maya smiled. "Living crystals," she mused. "No wonder our initial scans confused them for decorative elements. Begin adaptation protocols." In orbit, the battle had reached a stalemate. The Catharian fleet, though bloodied by Earth's initial defense, had regrouped. Supreme Commander Varix watched with growing unease as his ships maintained a defensive position around Earth's moon. "Status report," he demanded. "Our losses stand at 23 vessels," his tactical officer responded. "The humans' defensive capabilities exceed all projections, but we still maintain superior numbers and technology." Lyra, who had refused to leave the command deck, studied the tactical displays with growing fascination. "Supreme Commander, you need to see this. The human vessels, they're changing." On the displays, the swarm was evolving. The simple craft that had first launched from Earth were incorporating salvaged Catharian crystal technology into their structures. But they weren't just copying. They were innovating. Back in the research facility, Maya worked with her team to unlock the true potential of the crystal technology. The Catharians used these crystals as pure computing systems, she explained to the assembled scientists. But they've missed their true potential. The crystalline structure can be modified to serve as both hardware and energy conduit, like turning the entire ship into both computer and weapon, one of her colleagues realized. "Exactly. And we can do it better." Maya brought up new schematics. They built their entire civilization around these crystals, but they're bound by tradition and established protocols. We're not. In space, the first of the hybrid vessels made their appearance. They were smaller than Catharian ships, but moved with impossible agility. The crystalline components weren't just grafted onto human technology. They were fully integrated, creating something entirely new. Impossible, Varix whispered as he watched the hybrid ships tear through his fleet's defenses. Their power signatures, they're using our own crystal technology at frequencies we never thought possible. Lyra's scales rippled with excitement despite the danger. Don't you see? This is why they're different. Other species we've conquered try to copy our technology directly. Humans, they take it apart, understand it, and then make it do things we never imagined. The hybrid ships demonstrated this truth with devastating efficiency. They used the crystal matrices not just for computing, but as energy amplifiers, turning their smaller size into an advantage. Each shot from their weapons resonated through the crystalline structures of Catharian vessels, causing cascading failures in systems that had been considered perfectly stable for centuries. "Sir," the tactical officer reported, his voice shaking, "they're not just using our technology. They're improving it. Their weapons are targeting our crystal matrices at a quantum level. They've learned more about our fundamental technology in weeks than we have in centuries." In the research facility, Maya received the battle data with satisfaction. "Begin Phase 2, she ordered. "Deploy the nanite swarms." From Earth's surface, clouds of microscopic machines rose into space. Each one carried a tiny fragment of crystal, programmed with humanity's understanding of Catharian technology. As they approached the alien fleet, they began their work, not destroying, but transforming. "What are they doing to our ships?" Varix demanded as strange patterns began appearing on his fleet's hulls. "They're rewriting our crystal matrices," Lyra breathed in astonishment. "Not destroying them, reprogramming them. They've turned our own technology into a vulnerability." The nanites spread through the Catharian fleet like a technological virus, turning the very essence of their ships against them. Systems that had been stable for generations began operating in ways their creators had never intended. "This is why we should have listened," Lyra said quietly. "Humans don't just adapt to challenges, they transform them into advantages. Every piece of technology we brought to this fight has become a lesson for them, and they're proving to be very quick students." Maya watched the battle displays with quiet pride. "Send word to General Chen," she instructed. "Phase 2 is successful. The Catharian fleet is compromised. Their crystal technology is now as much ours as theirs, and we've already found better ways to use it." In space, the transformed human ships, now glowing with repurposed crystal energy, advanced on the failing Catharian fleet. They were about to demonstrate that humanity's greatest strength wasn't just its ability to adapt, but its drive to improve upon everything it encountered. Admiral Marcus Santos stood on the bridge of the HSS Defiance, humanity's first true interstellar warship. Its hull gleamed with the integrated crystal technology that Earth had not just borrowed, but revolutionized. Through the view screen, he watched as the combined human fleet prepared for its first faster-than-light jump. "Fleet status," he commanded, his voice carrying the weight of humanity's first steps into galactic warfare. "All ships report ready, Admiral." Commander Emma Wright responded. "The modified crystal drives are functioning at 120% of Catharian baseline efficiency. Our improvements to their design are holding stable." Marcus nodded, remembering the swift evolution of human space combat capabilities. In just 6 months, they had gone from defending Earth to preparing an offensive against the heart of the Catharian Empire. "Begin the broadcast." Throughout known space, communication channels lit up with Earth's message. It wasn't transmitted just in Catharian. It was broadcast in the languages of every species the Empire had conquered. The message was simple. To all those who suffer under Catharian rule, watch the skies. Freedom is coming. On distant worlds, Enslaved species looked up with hope for the first time in generations. The Catharians had ruled through superior technology and unshakable confidence in their dominance. But rumors had spread of the primitive species that had not only resisted them, but had turned their own technology against them. On the Catharian throne world, High Chancellor Vex received reports of growing unrest with mounting concern. How are they doing this? He demanded of his advisors. How are they coordinating resistance on 100 worlds? Lyra, now serving as a reluctant consultant to the Empire's leadership, knew the answer. Social media, she said simply. What? Humans didn't just study Catharian technology. They kept their own communication methods secret. They're using old-style radio waves, primitive by our standards but invisible to our monitoring systems. They're teaching other species to build simple receivers from household items. The resistance isn't being coordinated from the top down. It's spreading organically, like a cultural virus. In the void of space, the human fleet made its first jump. They didn't appear where the Empire's tactical doctrine would have predicted, at strategic military locations. Instead, they emerged near civilian populations on conquered worlds, broadcasting a new message. Watch what we do to their warships. Then imagine what you could do with our help. The demonstrations were devastating. Human ships, smaller but far more maneuverable than their Catharian counterparts, engaged Imperial vessels with tactics that seemed to defy physics. They used the crystal technology in ways that made the original inventors stare in disbelief. Multiple independence declarations detected, reported a Catharian intelligence officer. The Proxima colonies, the Centauri Alliance, even the Rigel Protectorate. They're all rising up. The human fleet didn't just fight. They taught. Every engagement was a lesson, broadcast across captured Imperial channels. They showed how to identify weaknesses in Catharian crystal matrices, how to disrupt their command structures, how to turn their own technological arrogance against them. On the Defiance, Admiral Santos received reports of spreading rebellion with satisfaction. Begin Phase 2, he ordered. Deploy the liberation packages. Across conquered worlds, small capsules descended from human ships. Inside each one was a complete guide to defeating Catharian technology, along with simple tools that could be used to disrupt their control systems. The Empire had spent centuries building their dominion on technological superiority. Humanity spent 6 months teaching others how to break it. Sir, Commander Wright called out, we're receiving transmissions from within the Empire's own military. Some of their ships, they're defecting. Marcus allowed himself a small smile. This had been part of the plan from the beginning. Humanity hadn't just studied Catharian technology. They had studied their society, their culture, their hierarchies. They found the fractures that centuries of arrogant rule had created. The Empire made one fundamental mistake. He mused as reports of spreading rebellion continued to flood in. They assumed technological superiority meant they were superior in all ways. They never considered that a primitive species might understand something they didn't. The power of information, freely shared. The human fleet continued its advance, but they weren't just conquering. They were liberating. Every world they reached became not just free, but a new center of resistance, teaching others what humanity had taught them. Send word to Earth, Marcus commanded. Operation Liberation is proceeding as planned. The Empire isn't just losing worlds, they're losing their narrative. Their subjects no longer believe in their invincibility. In the vast darkness of space, more human ships emerged from faster-than-light travel, each one carrying not just weapons, but ideas. The Catharian Empire was about to learn another human truth. Sometimes the most powerful weapon isn't the technology you possess, but the knowledge you share. The crystalline spires of Cathar Prime glittered in the light of its 3 suns, but the ancient seat of imperial power no longer inspired awe. Instead, it stood as a monument to the coming change as the combined fleet of humanity and liberated species assembled in orbit. High Chancellor Vex stood in the Imperial Palace's grand chamber, watching holographic displays of his crumbling empire. Around him, The few remaining loyal advisors waited in tense silence as reports of more defections poured in. How did we lose control so quickly? He wondered aloud. We ruled for 1,000 years. Lyra, still present as the Empire's foremost expert on human behavior, answered quietly. We didn't lose control quickly, Chancellor. We lost it slowly, over centuries of arrogance. The humans just showed everyone else that it was already gone. The displays showed the human fleet, now accompanied by ships of dozens of liberated species. Each vessel bore the marks of transformation. Catharian crystal technology, blended with unique cultural innovations. The humans hadn't just taught them to copy, they had taught them to create. On the HSS Defiance, Admiral Santos stood with representatives from 20 formerly enslaved species. The ship's bridge had been modified to accommodate various atmospheric requirements and biological needs, a visible symbol of humanity's commitment to genuine cooperation. All fleets report ready, Commander Wright announced. The Proximan carriers, Centaurian battle groups, and Rigelian strike forces are in position. The Catharian defense grid is already compromised by internal resistance. Marcus nodded. Send the message. Throughout the Catharian capital system, every communication device, from the most advanced quantum transmitter to the simplest radio, broadcasts simultaneously. People of the Empire, this is Admiral Marcus Santos of Earth. You've seen what freedom looks like. Now it's time to choose. In orbit, the defensive lines of remaining loyal Catharian ships faced not just the combined fleet, but their own kind. Former Imperial vessels, their crews having chosen liberation, stood ready to fight their former masters. They're not even maintaining proper formation, a Catharian tactical officer observed with dismay. Every ship is flying differently, using modified versions of our technology. Our combat computers can't predict their movements. The battle, when it came, was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Ships from dozens of species, each applying their own cultural understanding to the borrowed technology, moved in patterns that defied traditional military doctrine. The rigid, standardized Imperial forces found themselves facing an enemy that evolved its tactics moment by moment. But the true victory wasn't won in space. Throughout the capital city, citizens who had lived under strict Imperial control for generations began emerging onto the streets. They carried simple communication devices built from household items, sharing information and organizing with techniques learned from human social networks. In the Imperial Palace, Vex watched as his own population turned against him. They're not even using weapons, he whispered. They're just talking to each other. That's the power we never understood, Lyra explained. Humans didn't just master technology, they mastered the art of sharing ideas. Every world they liberated became a new source of innovation, each culture adding its own perspective to the knowledge pool. The end came not with a grand space battle, but with a message. From every planet, moon, and station in the Empire, the same demand echoed. We choose freedom. In the Grand Chamber, Vex faced the inevitable. They've won, haven't they? Not just the war. They've changed everything. Hours later, Admiral Santos stood in that same chamber, but not as a conqueror. Around him gathered representatives from hundreds of species, including reformed Catharian leaders. They weren't there to establish a new empire, but something unprecedented, a galactic coalition of equals. The humans have proposed a remarkable structure, a Proximan delegate announced. No single species in control, all technology shared, all innovations built upon. They call it open source governance. Marcus smiled at the term, remembering humanity's long history of collaborative development. We learned long ago that the best way to advance isn't to hoard knowledge, but to share it. Every perspective adds value. Every culture brings new insights. The chamber, which had once echoed with imperial pronouncements, now buzzed with excited discussions as species that had been separated by imperial decree began sharing ideas freely. The crystal technology that had been the Empire's jealously guarded secret was being reimagined in ways its creators had never considered. You never intended to just defeat us, did you? Lyra asked Marcus quietly. You intended to transform us. We learned something important from our own history, he replied. Real change doesn't come from conquering. It comes from showing people a better way, then letting them choose it for themselves. As the delegates began drafting the coalition charter, the principles were clear: shared knowledge, collaborative innovation, and protected independence. The Empire's fall marked not just the end of an era, but the beginning of a new way of thinking about galactic civilization. In the space above Kethar Prime, ships of all species flew together, their modified crystal drives glowing with the combined innovation of 100 cultures. They stood as a testament to humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy, not the defeat of an empire, but the proof that cooperation could create something greater than conquest ever could.